Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Post Loons. I'm your host, Jacob Schneider, on vacation in Florida, not at a snowy Allianz Field. And I'm joined today by my co-host and colleague and good friend, Mr. Eli Hoff. Eli, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be on. I am in a not as warm location as you, though. My day here in Missouri was full of rain, not snow. So who am I to complain?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I've endured a 36-hour travel session from Minnesota to Florida. Let's not judge, with the hat and the Hawaiian T-shirt vibe. We're just here on vacation, watching some soccer and having some fun.
They're calling you the Beach Boy.
Yeah, Beach Boy. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, folks, welcome to another episode of Post Loons. Minnesota United versus New York Red Bulls. 1-1 final score. The 2023 snow opener at Allianz Field. Eli, let me get your initial thoughts on the result. Is it a positive for Minnesota, a positive for the Red Bulls, negatives on either side? What's your takeaway?
Yeah, I think it's a result you have to be happy with. You go into any game where you look at what that field looked like when the game started here. That's penalty areas free except for some miscellaneous snow chunks. Also, other random parts of the fields sort of free of snow, and others very covered in snow. Like it was always going to be a chaotic game. And in the Red Bulls tactical setup is one that sort of engineers that chaos. If you remember that from last year and that sort of press that they would run, I think chaos was always going to be the outcome here. And we also, we have to be realistic about what Minnesota United is right now without Emmanuel Reynoso. So I think coming into this game, if you would have said 1-1 draw with some quality moments, cool. That's a result that you're fine with. It could have been better. It could have been worse. And that's kind of the epitome of a 1-1 draw for me.
All right, folks, you heard from Eli just now. Before we get into the show now, reminder, subscribe, like, share on social media as you're watching right now. If you're on Twitter, retweet it, share it with a friend, send it to your group chat. If you're watching on YouTube, share it with friends. If you're watching on Facebook, give it a share as well. And a general reminder, if you are watching on Twitter, you will not be able to send us comments. We will not be able to see, unfortunately, due to StreamYard. However, if you'd like to send us a question throughout the show, feel free to join the streams on YouTube or on Facebook, or tweet at Eli or myself, and we'll be able to get those on air over the show over the next 30, 45 minutes, however long we run. So thanks again. Reminder, subscribe, leave a thumbs up, give us all the support you can. So Eli, like you just said, it's a good result for Minnesota. It's a good result for the Red Bulls. Loons have not lost through 2 matches this season. Red Bulls scored their first goal of the campaign. Van Zier's slowly making his way onto the pitch. He's their big money signing this offseason. John Tolkien looks to be the big part. He's due for a big European payday this summer. So I think, it's a fair result for both sides. I think, there's a little bit left on the table for Minnesota simply because it's a home match. But all in all, I think, given the fact that you've got 2 Western Conference or two competitive conference teams going at it, I think it's a fair result. And my first big point I wanted to talk about today was anticipation and how teams anticipated things. The weather. Players had to adjust their studs, their boots. They couldn't, come into today with just regular boots. They had to adjust for the temperature, for the pitch, for the snow, for the way the ball was going to be kicked, for the how soft the turf was. And I think we didn't see a ton of slipping out there after the first 10, 15 minutes. Players really started to find their feet. Players really started to adjust to, what the circumstances were, and my biggest takeaways from anticipation were Bongo Kulik Longwane on the opener for Minnesota. I mean, Mickey Tapias' header. How often is a player going to look at that, position himself and say, all right, I can pounce on it right away? It's fantastic. And then Dan St. Clair was great in net. His defense let him down a lot tonight. Especially the partnership between Kemar Lawrence and Mickey Tapias, I think. But he was fantastic. And then, they just adjusted when they needed to, and, they got a draw. They got a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm inclined to agree with that, especially what I was really hoping to key in on early on here was what that center back partnership looked like, of how Tapia suggested with Boxall and how that kind of evolved from the Dallas game. But really, it was impossible to evaluate the dynamic because within the first 5 minutes, Tapias, to his credit, this may have been the first time he ever played in snow. I really think it had to have been because he looked like he was playing on ice and was afraid to turn his hips, which is obviously a really, really vital part of playing center back, is being able to pivot your hips quickly. And that led to some of those Lewis Morgan chances in the first 3 minutes. And to his credit, he settled in. I don't know if somebody told him, look, you've got the cleats, trust the cleats, and plant your feet. But so there was a lot of adjustment there early on to become more comfortable with this kind of snowy landscape that you have to give players credit for. Just because this team is from Minnesota does not mean they practice in snow on the regulars. You can attest, Jacob, you're a regular over at the NSC. Snow is always going to throw you off, even if you're a top level professional athlete. And for these center backs who are not the most mobile of individuals, that's really going to be a challenge, because that's a huge advantage for attackers. So I was really impressed by some of just the existing and playing soccer in the snow adjustments that happened within those first 10 minutes. It went from this could be really, really bad to, oh, actually this is moderately competent very quickly, which is credit to those guys.
And we got the orange ball out there, the famed hashtag orange ball watch on Twitter, made an appearance today. I did struggle at first though with the Loons white kits against the snow, despite the Aurora, the design on the front. Maybe not the best choice, but you get to debut your new kit at home in front of 20,000 fans on a snow opener. I mean, take what you can get. But Eli, one of the things you wanted to talk about too was set piece design and watching the runs, the positioning, the way things pay off. Can you talk to me a little bit about that today? Because both the goals we saw scored, respectively, from each side came off of set pieces.
Yeah, obviously this is a game that, again, if you look at the fact that both goals were scored off of corners, you're inclined to say, wow, this was a big set piece game. But really, I encourage everyone tuning in here to go back and watch all the different angles of both goals scored, because they were master classes in set piece design. There are times where set pieces are just, cross comes in, somebody jumps higher than somebody else and it gets knocked in, and that is what it is. This wasn't the case at all. You look at Minnesota United's goal, where Bongi's positioning was. He was immaculate, the spot that he stood in. He actually was able, so he parked himself about 2 yards in front of the goalkeeper, managed to stay onside in that because Red Bulls had guys right on the goal line. So he stayed onside, but was still able to interfere with the goalkeeper's line of sight. That forced a rebound save off the first one, and then he was able to score from point blank there. Having Bongi positioned right there is something that isn't going to pay off every corner, but this was exactly why you put somebody in that position, and he did the right job of staying onside there and just being alert and ready. He actually might have even deflected the first header enough to kind of force that uncomfortable save. So that was huge on Minnesota's set piece design. The Red Bulls on the corner they scored on also exhibited really good set piece design. If you watch Reyes, who scores that, actually lines up in a similar spot to where Bongi was, but he's actually coming back towards the ball, coming back towards the penalty spot. And what he does there, he does it late enough, and it's snow, it's not great traction. Kervin Arriaga is supposed to be marking Reyes. And Reyes has a step on Kervin Arriaga. And then when he jumps, he kind of twists around Valentin, actually, who's already in the air. And so Arriaga has no chance of catching up. He gets screened off by Reyes. And so Reyes created for himself a clean header here. And that sort of run, whether that was planned or that was something he just did coming back to the ball, is really, really impressive set piece design. It's almost impossible to mark, especially with the field conditions being what they were. I came away from today really, really impressed by what both teams were doing off set pieces. And even the throw-ins. We saw long throws from Valentin, which is a really huge thing when those can happen in the box. And towards the end of the game, there was one throw-in where one of the side cams cut to Valentin after it had gone out for a throw-in, and Minnesota's attacking third. It was a Red Bulls throw. He was doing this signal. And you could see immediately that clearly meant for Minnesota to mark up and man mark right there. And that actually led to them winning the ball, and it led to that Tani shot that was not the greatest shot in the world, but it was a quick win of possession in the attacking third. So really, really impressive set piece design from both teams, but a victory there, I think, for Minnesota with some of the potential going forward with these designs.
So we've got a comment from a viewer right now, Dave Walensky. Dave, thanks for joining the stream and sharing your thoughts here. Talking on Boxy today, he said he was almost like a statue in some moments. He struggled both in the air and with Lewis Morgan in particular. Lewis Morgan was an absolute menace today, and the fact that he didn't come away with the goal is criminal. I'm a big fan of Lewis Morgan. I think he's a brilliant player. I think the Red Bulls have a real talent on their hands with him, and he's ruthless when he gets on the ball. But he carved Tapias and Boxel up in the first half. I mean, I think there were 6 total chances simply created by Morgan, carving Lawrence, Tapias, and Boxel throughout the match. So, I mean, it was a tough game for a lot of people. You got to look at the weather as a factor. got to look at so there's a language barrier between Boxall and Tapias. And there's also the fact that Valentin and Boxall are relatively new partners as well. Boxall's the mainstay there, but the two people next to him are relatively new partners. So I think that needs to be taken into context. But if you want to leave a comment like Dave, hopping over to the YouTube or Facebook streams and comment away. You can't do it on Twitter, unfortunately, but if you are on Twitter watching and you would like to comment, at Eli or myself with our Twitter handles below our names here, and send us a question, and we'll hopefully be able to read it on air here. But Eli, my second point on the day was talking on attacking depth. Tani Oluwaseyi, I'm really happy to starting to see him, earn first team minutes. I'm starting to see more from him. I think there's a lot of potential, but he's not a player you're going to bring off the bench that wins you games. Look at the LA Galaxy, for example. Their starting striker is Javier Chicharito Hernandez. All right, when Chicharito's injured, like right now, they've got Dejan Joveljic in place of him. All right, Joveljic is an incredible striker. He comes on, he wins you games off the bench. All right, Minnesota doesn't have that. I look to competitors across the Western Conference. They've got players on their bench who aren't 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, trying to come in and make a difference. They're proven veterans. They're proven, players who can come in and make a difference. The only option Minnesota has off the bench is either Garcia or Amarilla as, a quote unquote proven option in their attack. So, hopefully that changes soon. Hopefully they get some depth coming in. It's just a short topic. They can't rely on this. It's not sustainable. They're going to have to start making changes, and they're going to have to start, bringing in players. And whether, the rumored U22 South Korean set to join the club is set to join, that still doesn't change a lot because it's a relatively unproven kid. And, it's going to be a struggling time for them without, their talisman, Emmanuel Reynoso, and, veteran leadership coming off the bench in the attack. For you, though. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think one of the things you have to look at with this attack is going into any game, right? You have to look at, okay, where are the goals going to come from, right? Assuming that, you'd ideally like to score at least one goal, probably more like 2 or 3, right? And where, how does this attack going to on a consistent basis, let's just say on every game, produce 2 goals, right? If that's kind of the metric you want to say. I don't know where those goal creators are right now. Emmanuel Reynoso is an obvious goal creator, and, who knows what ends up happening there. But Mender Garcia, to his credit, is great at what he does, is that advanced forward who can get in behind. But that just hasn't worked so far for this team. And so having options, having plan Bs that can that you can go to, that's part of the depth, as well as not just the physical talent, but from a game plan perspective. Who are you bringing in? How are they changing the game? How are they changing the math or the defense? That I don't see a huge abundance of options to really influence the game there. It mostly seems about like matching positionality right now, and I don't know if that's enough to sustain over the course of a season.
Yeah, and you wanted to talk about the midfield today too. Kervin Arriaga was brilliant. I thought Will Trapp unexpectedly came into play. Speaking with him early in the week, I really didn't think he was set to feature today, just due to the swelling around his rib. That it's rib 4 where the edema is, and that rib is surrounding your heart. And he was non-contact up until Friday, from what I've been told. So I'm surprised to see him out there, but Will had a good cameo. And then I thought Asani Dodson was really good. But expand on that. What were your thoughts on the midfield performance today? And who was a highlighted performance for you?
Yeah, well, real quick there, a comment we got in from Eric Grady about Lloyd passing up a shot at the end. It was an interesting performance from Robin Lloyd. I was sort of surprised by that. If you look at his heat map of where his positioning was, he actually played as almost like a left central mid most of the game. So it was really interesting. I'll have to go back and see a little bit of what he did, because I think there's something to unpack there. But on the central midfield, I think you were right, Jacob. I was really impressed by Will Trapp. I'd expected him to actually, not put in a strong performance, given he has a rib injury, and that seems like the sort of thing that would probably be painful in a soccer game. But came in and really provided a lot of control when this game needed it in those kind of first, evolving from that like 10 to 30 minute mark when it was really about control. Will Trapp was really instrumental in getting the game under there. And like you said, Hassani Dotson, this was actually, I think, one of the best Hassani Dotson impact substitutions we've seen ever. In the way he came in, the confidence he came in with, the way he changed the game, playing as a true 8. Those who've listened to me talk about this, for a while, and I know that I've been skeptical of sort of what he brings to this attack. I thought he brought a lot to this attack as an 8, as the kind of crash guy, the guy making the second run, and that he's putting, getting touches in the box and putting pressure there and not just letting it rip from 30 yards out. He can do that. That's great. Bangers only. I'm all for it. But you also have to get touches in the 18-yard box and sort of punish and strain the defense, and that's what he brought a lot of tonight. But those who've also listened for a long time know that the Curvin Arriaga hype train, I've been all aboard from day one on that, and he only continued to prove that tonight. He really did, putting in the whole shift there, playing both well in defense. There was a moment, I think it was around 40th minute, that was a counterattack. This was still when it was a very snowy pitch, and Curvin's coming from behind manages to catch up on the counter and get a slide tackle in the snow. That's just insane defensive timing that he puts in, and his distribution was immaculate. I have passing accuracy numbers. Again, this was a snowy game. It was absolutely horrible. And Jacob, I'm jumping into my third thing here because this is connected.
Go ahead, Eli. Go ahead.
But passing accuracy was something I wanted to watch tonight because, again, messy pitch. It's an outlier. But Curvin Arriaga had 71% passing accuracy, which, again, you think, okay, 70%, like that's not that great. That's a C-. But again, it's a snow game. It's very good. Now, to put this in context for you, that led Minnesota United. Curvin Arriaga was the best passer on the pitch as a central midfielder attempting a lot of volume here. Valentin was at 21% passing completion. Not good. Dane St. Clair was at 16% pass completion. Dane was 3 for 23 on long balls, which I think is something to watch going forward. Goalkeeper distribution just being a big deal. But in case you were wondering how impressive a performance Curvin put in tonight, again, it was his guy who scored on the goal. He's not going to get another Team of the Week performance, but he was. I will make the case that he was Minnesota United's best player on the pitch tonight because he completed 71% of his passes in a snow game as a central midfielder who doesn't attempt. These were not dump offs going backwards to Michael Boxall. These were advancing the ball, forward-minded, attack-minded passes. I came away just so impressed with his performance.
I think my players in the matches would have been either Arriaga or Hlongwane, Bongi Dino, as we like to call him over here at Soda Soccer. Bongi had a phenomenal first half. I thought he made incredible runs. I thought his work rate was really good. He put pressure on the keeper, put pressure on fullbacks in the corners. I think, he didn't make John Tolkien stand out in a normal match. John Tolkien is a standout player. And I think that enough says it right there because, you've got a $5-8 million transfer for a U.S. international coming this summer. And when he's shut down like that, even with the weather, I think, you have to look at the performance that Hlongwane put in. And, the goal adds to it, but take the goal away. He was still very, very effective this evening. And I think he brought the best out of Mender Garcia as well. So, not a great evening from Garcia or Maria off the bench, but Hlongwane was very good. I was very impressed. So my third piece was actually jumping into set piece defending, but we've already talked on that a bit. So if you are watching in the stream right now and you have a question, feel free to send it in. Reminder, if you are watching on Twitter, you're not going to be able to send a question in. Join on YouTube or on Facebook to send a question in, and we'll happily read it along. And on top of that, if you are watching, please like, subscribe, and share. As you're watching right now, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, doesn't matter. Let's get some more viewers in here, and let's keep talking Minnesota United versus New York Red Bulls for a while. But in the meantime, we have a word from our sponsor at Pentz Homes. So if you are a Minnesota United Twitter, you know who Nate Pentz is. He is a diehard Loon supporter. And Nate and his team are realtors specializing in the St. Paul, Minneapolis area. And he proudly supports various teams and organizations in the Twin Cities soccer community, like Minneapolis City, our friends over Equal Time Soccer, and now SodaSoccer.com. Not only is Nate ingrained in the local soccer ecosystem here, he's also helped countless people in and around the metro buy and sell their homes and has made them very happy as a result. So just head to PentzHomes.com to get the process started or email Nate directly at nate@PentzHomes.com. That's NATE at PENTZHOMES.com. Also make sure to let them know Jeremy, Eli, or Jacob from Soda Soccer sent you. Big thank you to Pentz Homes for sponsoring today's show. Back to the comment section. We have another comment from Eric Grady. And it's talking on Luis Amarilla. And whether or not he is an MLS caliber player. And I think the spring will be a very telltale story. If the Loons can't make goals from him, they're going to need to move on from him. And he is the lowest budget DP they have. They're able to buy him down to a TAM player, and as a result, on a TAM contract, he is much more movable across the league if there's interest from another team to bring him in. But there's also more capability to move him in the summer window if they wanted. Eli, let me get your thoughts on Luis's performance tonight.
Yeah, I thought Luis's performance was interesting tonight specifically because I think there was a bit of an evolution from him, and I saw him tracking back a lot more and playing in sort of an attacking, not midfield role and not a false nine role, but just being involved in the build-up. And I said to Jacob, actually, we were talking throughout the game when he came in that what I thought Almeria could bring to this game was a little bit of hold-up, a little bit of build-up play, and that is to an extent what he brought. Again, this game is also just a weird tactical one because of the snow, because of the field, because of the vibes. All of that it makes it an outlier. But that was an interesting note. And the thing, Eric, once I saw your comment there that I was thinking about is, asking, is Almeria an MLS level forward? Probably he can work in the league, right? But is he the right fit for Minnesota United's system? I think that's the bigger question here. And then that leads us to the secondary question of what does Minnesota United want out of its strikers? Because this is, I feel like every season since 2017, we've been talking to some extent about what's the answer to the striker question. And it's gone from Christian Ramirez to Angelo to Almeria and back again. So many and
Dunladi twice.
In Dunladi, yeah. There's just there have been so
Mason
many attempts
Toye.
to answer this, and Mason Toye, yeah. And I think the most success we've seen the Loons have at striker has been Robin Lod at the false nine. Right. And obviously the tactical system has evolved a little bit, right? There was that, 2020, 2021, like real big counterattack emphasis, right? But, Robin Lod at the false nine has been the most successful player at striker. Now, I think that says something about the way Adrian Heath wants to play and the way this player pool wants to play, that the attack needs to be sort of positionless. That it needs to be, if it's a 4-2-3-1, it's really a 4-2-4, and that 4 is going to be kind of a ambiguous blob that's going to have different guys running in different places at different times and play a lot and combine a lot with each other. A lot of dribbling. Obviously, that changes without Reynoso a little bit, but I think the attack needs to be a little positionless. So what that requires out of a striker is someone who can play all over up there, right? Mender Garcia brings an element of that because he looks pretty comfortable out on the wings. The problem is that he's not really one to drop back and hold up too much. He's going to be the guy pressing the lines, trying to get in behind. That's a fine strategy, but that's not the way that Minnesota United traditionally plays. You look at how to work with Kervin Arriaga. You need a 9 who can play with his back to goal that Kervin can pass to and run off of, right? That's a great attacking combo that we see a lot. We saw Kervin try it tonight, and Mender Garcia doesn't bring that. Almeria can bring that to an extent, but again, it's about what he's being asked to do. He's not a guy to really get the ball, hold up, turn and create a window for himself to shoot, right? He's not really an aerial threat. He's not a ton of a get in behind guy. He can be in counterattack situations, but that's not what he plays to. And so again, it's where do the goals come from? Who's the creator here? Almeria is not a creating striker for himself necessarily. He can create for other guys, hold up a little bit. So I guess, if you say that what Minnesota United needs at the striker position is somebody who can create, then maybe Luis Almeria isn't the fit. I don't know who is the fit because how many creating strikers are there out there? It might be more of a tactical and team build and attack build question than a Luis Almeria question. But Jacob, I want your thoughts here because you're plugged in what the team's been looking at here for retooling the attack.
I think they're primarily looking at bringing a left wing and a striker at the moment. They want 2 players. There's a rumored U22 signing from South Korea. That plays in Europe, and whether or not he comes, it's up in the air because he's a very raw talent and his numbers aren't very proven. So you're banking on a kid to come in and change things, and while he totally can, while he could totally come in and be a superstar, right now they need proven numbers. And call me ambitious here, Eli, but prior to MLS kicking off today, Tom Bogert at MLSsoccer.com reported that St. Louis City SC are one of the teams interested in Roberto Firmino's signature this summer after he leaves Liverpool on a free. Still only 31 years old. do everything you can in Minnesota. You want a creative striker. You want somebody who can drop into a 10 role and move your 10 forward. You want somebody who can score goals in and around the box, European experience, Champions League, World Cups. He do everything you can. Obviously, St. Louis has the connections. But if at all you can make that phone call, that's the kind of player you need. You need to be ambitious in this window. Sometimes, finding that young striker, that 22, 23, 24-year-old superstar, it might not happen at this time. And bringing in a proven veteran who can, become a mentor to some of the young guys on the squad while also elevating everybody in that starting 11 might need to be the move. We'll see what happens. I think, I look at DC United bringing in someone like Christian Benteke. I think it's a great move for him. I think it's a great move for the league. I think Wayne Rooney's got a lot of options. Joao Klaus at St. Louis City SC. It's a real bummer that Chicho Arango left the league this year to move to Liga MX because I think he was a great addition. But, there's Enzo Capetti, who bagged his first goal last week at Charlotte. We're seeing these top strikers come in, and Minnesota has struggled so long at finding a consistent goal scorer. It just feels like, maybe they're not looking in the right position, the right player, the right fit. It's TBD. We're going to wait and see. We've got a comment here from Dave Stevens saying the tag hasn't been the same since Kevin Molino left. I think that's a fair shout. But Kevin Molino is still a left wing. He's not solving your goal scoring issue. It's more of he more helped create with Reynoso. They played off of each other really well. You still don't have your consistent goal scoring 9, which is the biggest issue. And Eric asks, is the Korean guy, the striker, the left winger? The rumored target right now is someone who can play at the left wing, at the 10, and at center forward, but he's also only 20. So, having a proven position at 20, it's not very common. He'll come into the system and they'll see where he fits best because, it's not like Bongi came in and right away was like, okay, right winger. They tried him on the left. They tried him up top. They tried him on the right. All right, you're on the right. Robin Lod came into Minnesota and he played left for far too long before they moved him to the right. And they're like, oh, okay, that's where you belong. So I think, it's a waiting game. But, I think Minnesota just needs to find their guy, find him soon, and go all in because there's no more room for mistakes. Eli, I just want to do a quick wraparound now of results from around the league because we've had some pretty impressive results today. Most impressive for me is Atlanta United beating Charlotte 3-0 and 18-year-old Caleb Wiley contributing to all 3 goals, 2 goals and an assist in his first start for the club. Really impressive. Congratulations, kid. But Vancouver, Dallas 1-1, DC United, Orlando 1-1. And then Cincinnati beating Seattle 1-0. The Sounders falling. Didn't see it coming. Brenner got on the score sheet and made the magic happen. That's why he's a $16 million player. That's why he's rumored to be, moving to the Premier League. NYCFC beat Inter Miami 1-0. The Union beat Chicago 1-0. Toronto FC, Columbus 1-1. Loons, New York Red Bulls, of course, 1-1. Nashville SC with an impressive 2-0 result over Montreal. And then SKC and the Galaxy playing to a 0-0 draw. That's a bummer. I hope to see Alan Polito back with SKC soon. He's been gone for a while. We don't really have an update on him. And once Chicharito gets back, I think the Galaxy are going to start cooking too. But as things stand, RSL are down 2-1 to Austin in the 90th minute, whereas Portland and St. Louis City are at 1-1, just starting the second half, and then the Earthquakes and the Rapids are at 0-0 at halftime. Just a little rip around the league right there, guys. The Loons are tackling Colorado next, so they'll have eyes on that match for sure. But before we look ahead, I'm going to do a little review of the match today. Lewis Morgan, 20 seconds in, nearly stunned Allianz Field, nearly stunned me. I was watching on my TV, and I was like, I just don't understand how he got by the entire roster, the entire 10 field players in Minnesota's half to get a shot off within 20 seconds. And then, the frustrating thing was Morgan was again back threatening in the 3rd minute, in the 6th minute, and in the 15th minute. That's 4 attempts within 15 minutes. It's not good enough. But the turnaround came in the 18th minute when Bongi scored. And then, they got to halftime. But coming out of halftime, it's a frustrating goal to concede 4 minutes into the second half. And Eli, you want to talk a little bit about the marking on that goal? I know you mentioned it to me, but Arriaga and Valentin weren't on the same page, and Reyes just came up big.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things with soccer that if you view set pieces in actually a very like there's a lot of similarity between soccer and basketball, but you can really see that on set pieces with this idea of screening people off and not just a lot of soccer is about leveraging space, but set pieces are the rare opportunity where you get to it sounds weird to say, but you get to leverage bodies and making runs off of people and screening your guy off, and that's what happened on this goal. And it's just it's one of those things that you combine that with the slippery pitch and that produces a clean look at the header. It's something it's not a novel concept on set piece design. Kirvan Ariag, it's not his first rodeo. He's still a tall guy who can mark well, so I don't think it creates any sort of long-term havoc for Minnesota United. But it is a lesson of what teams are trying to do on corners. And it was to raise his credit, like I said earlier in the show, it was a great cut. He got himself to the right spot and got a clean header on it, and it produced a goal. It's a great attacking play that made the defense scramble, and that's gonna produce goals more often than it's not.
Yeah, and if you're still watching the show, we got a group of you in here right now. Feel free to send us a quick question your way before we head out in the next 5 minutes. We're gonna wrap up a little early today, folks. It was a snowy evening at Allianz Field. Orange ball watch. It wasn't super eventful. 2 set piece goals. It was a flurry at the end. We're in the 84th minute. Red Bulls had a header go over the bar, and then the 86th minute there was an in-swinging cross where Vanzier missed the target. And then, in the 93rd minute, I thought Minnesota might have had the winner. What an opportunity that was. It was an amazing block from, I believe it was Kyle Duncan in the box from the Red Bulls. That saved them a point. New York earned a point right there on that play. And I don't think it's 2 points dropped from Minnesota. I think they're content with a point in these conditions against, a very competitive opponent who are known for their pressing style. And, I think the Loons were a little bit vulnerable today to it. But up next, they've got an opponent where, I think it's 3 points on the table or it's a miss because the Rapids have had a slow start to their campaign. They aren't banging in goals. They're conceding. They're 0-0 at halftime right now, like I said. And I think it's an opportunity to take 3 points on the road, and getting another big road victory would be huge. Eli, what are your thoughts on Rapids next weekend?
Yeah, I think one of the big things I'll be watching is actually the pressing you mentioned here. It's something that we've come to expect from New York Red Bulls, that they're going to come in and press. Tonight it wasn't successful, actually. If we look at one of the big stats of pressure working, it's takeaways in the opponent's half, right? How many times you're winning the ball on the other side of the halfway line. The Red Bulls took it off the Loons 1 time in the Loons half. The Loons took it off the Red Bulls 4 times in the Red Bulls half. Minnesota United was actually the far more aggressive and far more effective pressing team tonight. So that's what I'm watching next week against the Rapids, is what that evolution looks like. Again, I'm always intrigued by seeing how Adrian Heath is changing up the game plan from year to year. We look at how counterattacky it was a couple years ago. Last year, I felt like the identity piece really struggled here. I'm wondering if it's going to be pressure this year. Again, I talked about it earlier with getting up on that throw-in, and Valentine, this was an established thing. There was a signal for this that they had worked out on the field. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to next week. See how the personnel looks there. See what the attacking synergy looks like going forward, because I think pressure is going to be a really key part of this game plan, and that's an easy way for a team that maybe doesn't have the best player quality. We're talking about missing out on Manuel Reynoso, who is not particularly prone to effective pressure. Perhaps you can sort of actually leverage his absence by bringing in a little bit more willing defender on that part of the pitch and sort of compromise what opposing teams are able to do on the ball in their own half. And again, if you only win the ball 3 or 4 times a half, or 3 or 4 times a game in the opponent's half, that can still add up. That can still create significant opportunities. So we'll look to see if that pays off for the Loons next week against Colorado.
And after that, they will return home at Allianz Field to host the Vancouver Whitecaps in a Western Conference clash. And then the following weekend, they will take on St. Louis City SC on the road in the 2 clubs' first ever meeting. Soda Soccer might have some fun news regarding that match, so stay tuned. Be sure to subscribe, like, and join the Patreon here at Soda Soccer so we can continue bringing content like this. It means the world to us if you are able to support our work. whether it's $3 a month, whether it's $5, $10 a month, it does not matter what you contribute. Just being a contributor and supporting our work means the world to us. So before we head out, I just want to say thanks again. Thanks to our sponsor, Nate Pentz Homes. And thank you to my colleague, Eli Hoff, for joining me on tonight's Post Loons. Eli, any final thoughts on today, on MLS, on Bongi Dino before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a performance to build on. We're still figuring out what this Minnesota United team looks like. There is still the Reynoso question mark. There's still players who could be coming in here. So early on, I think you look at 4 points from these first 2 games. That's a moral victory there for sure. Probably more than a lot of folks were expecting. So it's a strong start. Looking competitive in both games. The defense has been pretty sound. Dane St. Clair, we didn't talk too much about him tonight, but he put in an excellent shift back there. The distribution is something to watch. The attacking synergy and personnel is something to watch. But there's also exciting new developments with some of that attacking pressure. So I think a lot of reason to be optimistic from these first 2 games, and we'll see how that builds with getting more consistent matches and not this play a game, rest 2 weeks, and then come back and see what you got. And no more snow games, maybe. I haven't looked at the Denver forecast for next week, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Wouldn't that be something? 2 back-to-back snow games.
Oh gosh.
All right, guys. All right, folks. We are officially on Orange Ball Watch as we head into week 4 of the MLS season because the Loons had a bye week in week 2. Thanks again for joining. I'm Jacob Schneider. I'm joined tonight by Eli Hoff. Thanks again. Have a great night, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.